And welcome everybody to episode 43 of the HOU.SEC.CAST, the HOU.SEC.CON podcast. I am here, as always, forever and ever with my best friend in the world, Sam Van Ryder. How you doing, Sam?
Hey, bestie. How you doing?
I'm great, bestie. So, man, we've done a lot of cool podcasts. I always say I'm excited, but we've got our 2025 keynote speaker, Dmitri Alperovitch. If you don't know who he is and you're listening to this podcast, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast, because you've been living under a rock for a really long time. So Dmitri is chairman at Silverado Policy Accelerator, national best-selling author, podcast host, co-founder of CrowdStrike. He is the co-founder of CrowdStrike. So everybody knows who CrowdStrike is if you're in this industry. I just can't wait for him to come to the conference, man. It's going to be great.
Yeah. No, this is super exciting, and yeah, I gotta say, I'm a little giddy, right? So
yeah,
this is great.
A little bit nervous. Got some rumblies. It's all right. No, great interview. Everybody, stay tuned for that. See Dmitri talk about what he's going to be talking about his background, everything else. So stay tuned. We'll be on there in just a second. And Sam, here we are with Dmitri Alperovitch. Did I say that right, Dmitri? Because
Alperovitch, yeah.
Alperovitch. My apologies. I've got a Ukrainian friend that I mess his name up all the time too. So really appreciate you being on here with us. And at episode 43, you are going to be our keynote this year at HOU.SEC.CON. So really excited for that. That's a really good. We have some good keynotes here lately. We had Gene Spafford come out, and we're really excited to see all the stuff you're going to be talking about as well. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But first of all, we're going to get into the HOU.SEC.CON segment, and then we'll jump in and talk to Dmitri.
So the HOU.SEC.CON user group, right? So their next one's coming up on the June 26th, and Anthony Castano is going to be presenting at this one. So Neutrality Data Centers still hosting us. Great partner. It's been great. And you can go register, and you do need to register so we can plan for food and stuff at the HOU.SEC.CON. You can register there. It doesn't cost anything. Come out, meet some more other folks in the community, and get some knowledge and eat some food. Yep. What else you got?
So we also have the TAB Cyber Foundation. So if you're not familiar with this, we don't talk about it all the time, but this is our nonprofit foundation, charitable foundation, where we're offering certifications and tuition for local cybersecurity programs. We've got the student applications are closing this time on July 1st. So if you are trying to get into cyber and you are trying to get to a local or a college, or you want to go do certifications, or if you're a veteran and you want to apply, those close on July 1st. So go get your applications. We've had quite a few applications this time. So we're really excited about that. That's out at tabcyberfoundation.org. Now for the big daddy of them all, what's going on with HOU.SEC.CON?
HOU.SEC.CON, that's the big one we do, right? Right.
I think it's sizable.
So tickets are going to go up. So if you haven't bought your ticket, they're going to go up. They're going to go up to $100 on July 1st. So please go get your ticket now. Save some money. Or if you want to wait, you can wait until July 1st, pay $100, or you can wait again to September 1st, and then it'll be $125. So be sure to get your ticket. We still have opportunities for sponsorships. Sponsors are a big part of what we do, or a big part of our community support, make this community able to meet and do our thing. So if you're interested, great way to get in front of a lot of folks in the cybersecurity community here in Houston and surrounding areas. So we get a lot of folks from out of area too. So shoot an email to sponsorwrangler@HOU.SEC.CON.com with any of your questions, and he'll send you a prospectus, and make sure that you've got, we'll put a link in the show notes as well. And the agenda, which is we're in the middle of working on right now. Very exciting. It was great response on submittals. So this is really going to be a great year. We will have the agenda out for that by July 1st. So look for that.
Yep.
And then we've got a new development up, that a big announcement, right? What's that?
Yeah, so we are launching and have launched CyBR.SEC.Media. So cyber without the E, because we got to be all cool. Cyber.SEC.Media.com. You can go to Cyber.SEC.Media also. That will take you out there. So it went live earlier this month. That's the new home of the podcast. It's got all of our presentations that we've had from all of our different events over the years, anything that we've recorded. We've always put that out there for free. So all that's going to be out, kind of accumulated on the site, one single spot where you can go get it. Again, CYBR for cyber. We're also going to have articles and podcasts in there over time. This is not a site where we're going out and doing a bunch of, this is the latest attack or the latest ransomware or anything like that. We're talking about trends. We're talking about technology. We're talking about things to help you build your cybersecurity program. This is not the world's on fire right now because somebody launched something against somebody 5 minutes ago. So go out there for that kind of news. If you go out and you get subscribed to the newsletter, we are giving away 10 free signed copies of Snake's new book, AI's Best Friend. I've got the book. It's good. Go sign up for that, and you can get entered into that drawing to be one of 10 people to win a signed copy on that. I'm very excited about this new little thing we're doing. So anyway, all right. Now that everybody knows everything about HOU.SEC.CON, we're going to talk to Dmitri. Dmitri, first of all, we normally do an article here, but we kind of wanted to talk about your book because I know you're going to be doing a book signing for us this year at HOU.SEC.CON.
That's right.
Thank you for doing that as well.
Of course.
The way I look at this, and I think I've watched a lot of podcasts to prepare for this that you've been in. I was joking with you earlier, like I feel like I've been in that room because I've seen quite a few of your podcasts that you've done. Everybody knows you in our industry because this is cybersecurity focused as a cybersecurity, starting CrowdStrike, and we got quite a big background in a lot of different areas. Cipher Trust, I believe, and other places. So interesting background and how you introduce yourself with that book. But so the book World on the Brink, How America Can Beat China in the Race for the 21st Century, that's more of a global political book versus just a cybersecurity book, even though you talk about that a lot. So I think you've got this question a lot, but you say we're in this second Cold War with China. How do you tie that in from what that looks like in practice to like enterprise defenders and how they should prepare if we are in this Cold War with China?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Look, I think cyber is in many ways a canary in the coal mine here. It has been the earliest signs. I think it has produced the earliest signs that we are in a new Cold War with China. So for those of us that have been paying attention to the Chinese espionage going back 2 decades, I think many of us have known that this is a new Cold War, that they're stealing everything that's not bolted down, our trade secrets, our IP, our national security secrets. And clearly this is being done to undermine U.S. economic advantage and ultimately undermine our national security. So it's been interesting to go around the country on this book tour and really the world and talk to many different audiences, most of them who are not coming to it from a cyber background, and have them be completely shocked that, oh my God, Cold War? What are you talking about? Like, how can this be a Cold War? We have this great economic relationship, not appreciating that we actually have very similar situation playing out between the United States and China that played out between the Soviet Union and the United States back during the first Cold War, in that you have an arms race, a space race, a tech war, an espionage war, a major regional flashpoint in Taiwan that can drive the two major powers to war. You have a scramble for military bases and space race and preparations for conflict and a global competition that plays out in every single corner of the world. So all those different elements that are the same. And, the book in many ways is a warning sign and ringing of the alarm bells that a potentially hot war is coming. It's not just about a Cold War, but that we are on a path to a real conflict. I was with Admiral Paparo, head of Indo-Pacific Command, recently, and his hair is basically on fire. He's so concerned that the United States will be in a war with China. on his watch, which, by the way, runs through 2027. So this is very, very real. And in many ways, on the hot war side, cyber is also providing some of the early indicators that China's preparing, because we have, of course, this Volt Typhoon campaign, right, that is targeting critical infrastructure all around the country and in the Pacific area as well, whether it's water, whether it's utilities, whether it's pipelines or the financial sector, and doing it in a way that's very different from the past Chinese intrusions, where they're not interested in stealing data. They're not doing that. They're burying themselves in, they're maintaining persistence. And the US intelligence community believes this has been done for the purposes of trying to destroy or degrade those networks in advance of conflict or during conflict for several purposes. One, to impede the readiness of the US military to fight a war with China and to flow our forces to the Pacific, to contest our logistical lines, and at the same time to try to deter us from intervening by threatening to hold hostage our critical infrastructure like our water, power, and so forth. And that's about as clear of a sign as you can get that this what has been done here is preparation of the battlefield. There's no reason for China to do any of these Volt Typhoon intrusions. There's no economic benefit to it whatsoever. They're putting a lot of resources into it, and it's because they're preparing for war, right? So to answer your question in a little bit of a long-winded way, the private sector is at the front lines of this conflict, whether the cold one or the hot one, right? We're on the front lines of the theft, first and foremost, and have been for 20 years. The U.S. government is not bailing anyone out. Every company is in it for themselves in terms of trying to defend against not just China, but obviously all the other nation state threats and criminal groups as well. And it's going to be on the front line of the hot war in cyber, because that's the infrastructure that is going to be used by the Chinese to try to undermine U.S. readiness. Because when you look at, for example, Transcom, the major combatant command responsible for transportation of U.S. forces and other logistics around the world, it is heavily reliant, for the most part, reliant on the private sector, whether it's our rail, whether it's our airlines, whether it's our port facilities. And that is the infrastructure that the Chinese will want to degrade or destroy.
So with the, I mean, right now we're talking a lot about tariffs, right? And negotiations and things, which doesn't seem to be helping anything. But do you think that has any sort of effect on escalation of the whole situation?
I don't. Look, a lot of people ask me these days, the book came out last year, and they're like, you're predicting that the conflict can happen in the sort of 2028 through 2032 period. Have you changed your mind? Is it going to happen this year? Is it going to happen next year? The answer is no. This is on its own timeline, which is mainly determined by the readiness of the Chinese military to actually execute this operation, which will be the largest, most sophisticated military operation in human history. Okay. So this is very, very difficult for them to pull off. And they're not going to just jump into it, given the stakes here. And they're very existential for Xi Jinping personally and for the Chinese Communist Party overall. They're not going to jump into it because of a trade war or tariffs or whatever. They're going to be doing it when they think they're ready and they have a high degree, high probability of success. So no, war is not imminent, but they're increasingly getting ready. They're building up that capability at a worrying pace, and that is the concern. Not that it's going to happen today or tomorrow or 6 months from now, but somewhere in the next 3 to 7 years, we might be in a hot conflict with China, which is a very, very scary prospect.
Yeah.
What do you think about, okay, so from that perspective, when you wrote the book, when it came out, we were just on the front end of the Ukraine situation, right? And where do you see potentially, is Russia distracted with this right now as far as contributing to a conflict with us at all? Or do you think that's still something that we need to keep in mind?
Yeah, so I started writing this book actually the day of the war, February 24th, 2022. And one of the reasons for that is that I was one of the first people to have publicly predicted that Putin was going to invade Ukraine. I did it back in December of 2021, almost 3 months before the conflict. And I laid out the reasons for why I was convinced that he was going to invade. And even though when he did, it wasn't really a surprise. It was still a shock to the system that, oh my God, this thing that I thought would happen, was convinced would happen, has actually happened. And when I sort of started to get my thoughts together, having had a completely sleepless night, if you recall, the launch of the attacks occurred just past midnight or around midnight U.S. time. And I was up all night talking to folks in Ukraine, watching videos of the invasion and the missile strikes and the like. And sort of that morning, as I was gathering my thoughts and thinking about what I got right, what I got wrong, and why I became so convinced that this war was going to take place, I realized that the same dynamic was playing out in Asia with Xi Jinping on a longer time frame, but basically the same drivers of this conflict, driven by a dictator that is in his 70s, that is obsessed with history, with ego, with destiny, with security, with geography. Exact same situation you have in with Xi Jinping in the Pacific. That war, is likely to happen on a longer time frame, as I mentioned. But when it comes to that conflict, we still have a chance to deter it, right? At the time I made that prediction in December of 2021, I think the die was cast. I think Putin was going to invade almost no matter what. With Xi Jinping, we have time, and the stakes for him are a lot more existential than they are for Putin. Putin can lose this war in Ukraine and still survive just fine in power in Russia. Xi Jinping likely will not have that option. So that's why we have an opportunity to change his calculus and prevent this ruinous war from taking place. But when it comes to Russia itself, look, this war obviously is now in its fourth year and shows no sign of ending. We just had a wrap up of the second negotiations in Istanbul, where both sides presented their proposals, Russia and Ukraine, and they're very, very far apart. Obviously, Putin essentially wants a surrender of Ukraine, a surrender of its sovereignty, demilitarization, at least a partial demilitarization of its military to enable him to invade again, complete neutrality and no support from the West, military support. He wants the full 4 regions that he's conquered, and they're now making noise that they may want even more. And by the way, he hasn't even fully conquered those 4 regions. He's conquered them partially, but he's asking Ukrainians to withdraw from the territory they control today, including one of the very large cities, Kherson. That is just completely unacceptable to the Ukrainians. They're not ready to surrender and have no interest in it, especially after the incredible drone attack that they've just pulled off, hitting simultaneously 4 Russian air bases, and what they say has destroyed over 30% or damaged at least 30% of the Russian strategic bomber force. Incredible coup. So that war is going to go on very likely for some time. And I don't think it's going to impact Xi's calculus one way or another.
Well, I mean, it's in the opening read of in the prologue of it. I mean, kind of reading like that Clancy novel style of here's what we see coming down the pipe. I mean, it's a the thing that I had thought about as I was reading that, and it brings up to what Sam was talking about with the tariffs, is I was actually wondering if the economic pressure would cause China to up their timeline just because they see it as another crisis for them, and being able to make sure that they're not getting hurt too badly economically. It sounds like you don't think that's going to happen. You think they can be more patient maybe than Putin has been with Russia or with Ukraine in some ways.
Putin has been very patient, right? He's wanted to take Ukraine for a very long time. In fact, there's an amazing video of him on YouTube giving an interview in Russian back in 1991, talking about the problem that is the collapse of the Soviet Union. He's a nobody then, right? He's an unnamed bureaucrat in the St. Petersburg mayoral administration. So this has been a focus area of his for many decades now. And of course, he came to power in 1999. He didn't invade Ukraine comprehensively with this full-scale invasion until 2022. He did a partial conquest in 2014. He tried to meddle in selections going back to 2003. But it took him decades to make that full step because he thought that there was another way and that he had time. And I think coming out of COVID in particular, he was very obsessed with his own mortality, with unfinished business. We remember the memes of the long tables when he was meeting with anyone. You had to be 10 feet apart from him or even more. So that's why he did it when he did. And I think that very similar dynamic is playing out with Xi, where he's up for re-election in 2027 for an unprecedented fourth term, one that he's almost certainly going to win unless something dramatic happens in China. And that term is a 5-year term as a standard that expires in 2032. In 2032, he's going to be 79. So in the Chinese system, they don't tend to elect their leaders into their 80s. And who knows, health concerns may intervene, etc. So I think he's going to be thinking about that as potentially his last term in power. And like Putin, thinking about unfinished business. And that's what's driving that 2027 deadline he'd given to the military. It's not that they're going to invade in 2027. It's very much a political deadline, but he wants to be ready and he wants to have options post his reelection. And that's incredibly worrying.
Yeah. Well, for everybody who's going to be at the conference, come out and get a signed copy of the book. It's a great read. I'll admit I have not made it all the way through it, but it's what I've made through is fantastic, especially the opening prologue. I'm a longtime Clancy fan, so it just kind of read like that to me. So everybody come out and learn what you can do to help, hopefully, fix this problem before it gets to that point. And that's a lot of what this book is about. So I appreciate you writing that.
Thank you. And Michael, that prologue that you're referring to, that's a scenario of invasion. I spent a lot of time on that, including in Taiwan, walking the terrain with U.S. military, with Taiwanese defense officials as well, thinking through how this could unfold, because this is very, very difficult to pull off. You walk that terrain and you start thinking, if you're a Chinese PLA officer, the last thing you want to do is storm this terrain. It is so hellish. And yet they've been focused on that for at least 4 decades, if not longer. And there is ways that it can be done. And, I think the prologue, even though it's a little bit of a fictional prologue, the book is nonfiction, but that part is, and hopefully will stay fiction, is as realistic, I think, as it gets to what a conflict or how a conflict over Taiwan could unfold.
Yeah. Oh, it was amazingly detailed. Amazingly detailed. It was very well done. And anybody who's a fan of just wanting to military conquest and that kind of thing would really, I think, get a lot out of it. A lot of geography that I didn't know about in Taiwan. So,
and I think it's super important for our community I've told Dmitri this. I've purchased those books and sent them out to customers and things like that, because it's important to understand why. Right? We do all this stuff all day long, as defenders, but to really understand the why gives you much better perspective on what to prepare for. And, and that's, so I'm super excited to have Dmitri do our opening keynote, and super excited to have you there to do a book signing with us. So really fantastic. And this kind of leads into the next thing that I really wanted to dig into with you, Dmitri, which is your background, your origin story, right?
Before we do that,
yes,
we've got to do a break.
We do.
We have to do a break.
Sorry, so, I'm ahead of myself.
You are ahead of your. It's okay, Sam. You're excited. You're excited. I get it. I'm excited as well. But we do need to do a break. So let's do a quick break, and then when we come back, yes, we will lead off talking about Dmitri and what brought him into this world. If you get the book, you can learn a lot about that too. So I think he'll be talking about that in the book. Is the history is really cool. So all right, let's get on the break. We will be back in just a few seconds, and we will talk to Dmitri. And hello, everybody. Michael Farnham here, co-founder and president of HOU.SEC.CON. So if you listen to the podcast or watch the podcast, actually, you'll see that there is a new logo up here. So this is the new site that we're launching, Cyber.SEC.Media.com, cyber without the E because we want to be all cool like that. So go out to Cyber.SEC.Media.com, see what we've got out there. Really excited about this. So this site is going to be, first of all, about rolling up all of the presentations that we've done over the last 15 years. Anything that we've recorded is going to be up there. If you know you've gone out and seen that, we don't charge for that kind of stuff. We want to have that stuff out there for free for the community. So that's going to have all the roll up over the last 15 years of anything that we've recorded in presentations is going to be out there on cybersecmedia.com. Second of all, we are going to have all of the podcasts that Sam and I do every 2 weeks, any special videos, those kind of things. That'll all be there as well. And then third, what I'm really, really excited about, because we're kind of extending past just the conference, is we're going to have articles and blog posts from various people in the industry, influencers, practitioners, anybody in the industry. We're going to have them do some blog posts, some articles. Those will all be on the latest trends. This is not going to be a news site about the latest ransomware or the latest hack that's happening. This is all about providing value to you to help you build your cybersecurity program. So really excited to go out there and put this together for you, for our community, provide that value. If you go sign up for our newsletter, again, that's free newsletter, you will be entered into a drawing to win one of 10 of Robert Hanson's, a signed copy of Robert Hanson / R-Snake. You should know who R-Snake is. His new book, which is AI's Best Friend. You'll get a chance to win one of 10 of those signed copies of that book. So go sign up. Please join us for what we're doing with CyberSec Media. Very excited about it. All about the community, giving you value, giving you access to a lot of great talks and a lot of great content. That's what we're about here at HOU.SEC.CON. So see you there. Go sign up. Thanks, everybody. All right, we are back from that break. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got some water. We're back to talk to Dmitri. So, Dmitri, all of our listeners, watchers know that we always like to do a personal history background, kind of what led you into this industry. I know you're kind of out of cybersecurity industry. You're more into geopolitics and everything that affects that. But you did start out kind of in that space. There's a really cool story in the book about you and your dad when you were in high school and doing some cool stuff. So tell us what got you into this in this world of cyber, and then maybe what led you to get kind of out of it into what you're doing today.
Yeah, I don't think I'm completely out of it. In fairness, I just recently finished serving on the Cyber Safety Review Board, which is sort of the NTSB of cyber, where we looked at a variety of different intrusions, sort of like the National Transportation Safety Board looks at airline crashes and train derailments. We did for cyber. I'm on a bunch of boards, including Dragos, and helping great cybersecurity companies become the next CrowdStrike. So not completely out, even though it's not necessarily the focus of my work day to day now. But yeah, my background, I'm an immigrant to this country. I was born in the former Soviet Union and had the privilege of immigrating here as a kid, and developed an early passion for cyber actually through my dad, who got interested in the 90s in the then emergent field of public key cryptography, particularly elliptic curve cryptography. That was all the rage at the time. And we built a small company together. I was still in high school, doing encryption for both consumer and some enterprise use cases, and kind of got to appreciate early on that as cool as encryption is, as great as the math is behind some of these algorithms, it's not really the solution, right? Because someone steals your keys, someone injects a backdoor into your code, that's game over. And that what makes cybersecurity industry at the time was called information security so fascinating is that it's a never-ending cat and mouse game. And I'm, as you can see behind me, an avid chess player. And I love that aspect of cyber, that there's always a move to be played by the adversary. You're never done, right? Whatever great move you come up with, great technology, great approach, they're watching, they're taking into account everything you're trying to do, and they're going to respond in some form or fashion, and you have to be ready for that. And that's what makes it so exciting and always constantly changing, unlike many other fields, right, that tend to potentially stagnate over time. So that's how I got into this industry. I went to college, focused on getting a degree in cybersecurity from Georgia Tech, and then into the world of startups. And that ultimately, years later, led me to founding CrowdStrike many years later.
Well, from CrowdStrike to now, so while you still have a finger in a lot of the cyber stuff, and yeah, as Dragos, I'm pleased to have you as part of our mission. But what's driving you now away? I mean, there's a reason to write the book. What was the motivator behind writing the book, and what's the motivation in running into what you're doing now with Silverfort? Is that right?
Silverado.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So Silverado Policy Accelerator is my new job, if you will, or 5-year job now, which is a nonprofit I founded after leaving CrowdStrike that is focused on ensuring American prosperity and success in the 21st century, making sure that just as the 20th century was an American century, the 21st century remains so. And again, majority of the focus of the organization is on China, and how do we ensure that we win the Cold War and we prevent a hot war with China. Those are really the two dual things that we work on from a policy perspective, trying to provide ideas here in Washington, D.C., to the administration, to Congress on a bipartisan basis to move the ball forward. And we look at a range of issues from cyber and broader technology and AI in particular, semiconductors, critical minerals, energy security issues, all the things, and the military dimension as well, reforming military and defense industrial base, and helping to enhance our deterrence in the Indo-Pacific. So, people often ask me in relation to the book while I'm on the book tour, what's the next book going to be? And I sort of half jokingly say that the next book will be in 2032 or 2033, sort of past my date for invasion, about how we either succeeded in deterring China or we failed dramatically, and the world is vastly different and not in a good way as a result of it.
Well, still will come out before George R.R. Martin does his last book, but I won't get into that. So then as you see it today, then, because you talk about how you saw kind of an evolution of attackers over time, and that's what kind of brought you to thinking we need to look at the people versus just the technology. From a nation state perspective, I mean, is there room for them to still keep evolving, or are we kind of at a spot where their attacks have infiltrated to a degree to where we're kind of are where we are? Are we able to get them out of does that make sense what I'm asking? I'm trying to get a sense of
Yeah.
where they're going, and can they do more, or are we starting to figure that out?
Well, there's always innovation taking place, in part enabled by technology. So generative AI, of course, is driving some of that innovation with improvements to social engineering, with improvements to vulnerability discovery. I think you'll see more automated attacks coming out of that space as well. But then also, in terms of tactics, I've always said this for 15 years or so, that the North Koreans are the most innovative cyber actor by far. Not necessarily the most technically sophisticated, although they're very, very good, but certainly in terms of coming up with new ways to conduct cybercrime, new ways to further national objectives with the use of cyber. And look at what they're doing now, what they've been doing for a few years now, which is this IT worker trend, which is just absolutely remarkable, right? Getting hired in some of the largest and smallest companies around the country, getting past all the interview processes, getting access into the network, right, as legitimate developers, and then collecting a paycheck. And what we haven't really yet seen is their use of this to steal data en masse. They've done a little bit of that, but mostly kind of to blackmail the company into paying their salaries. But I think it's only a matter of time before they realize, why are we spending all this effort trying to break into companies using exploits, vulnerabilities, social engineering attacks, when we can just get hired in, get legitimate access, be told where everything is, be granted access to that data and then just take it out, right? So that merger of IT worker and espionage missions, I think, is inevitable. And inevitably, also what happens is that the North Koreans invent something new, and then everyone else adopts it. Once they look at it and they're like, oh, that was quite brilliant, right? So I imagine the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians are all paying close attention to this, and it's only a matter of time before they start using those same principles.
Yeah, we had a little project we've been working on here at HOU.SEC.CON, and it involves some coding. And I was using one of the platforms. It was Upwork, and just in our little thing. But I realized, look, we're cybersecurity focused. I want to see this person face to face, at least on video, and I was being paranoid enough to just watch the person and go, okay, that is a real person. Like their background's not totally generic. Yeah, it has made me paranoid enough. And I know also I've got a customer of mine in my day job that I've had this conversation or said this anecdote a couple of times where if they've got external parties, third parties that they don't know very well, or they don't know at all, it's the first time, they will not use their own video to talk to them because they don't want that to get recorded somehow and then them be able to deep fake like the CISO or something like that. So it's in enough people's brains to where it's starting to hopefully take effect, but it still happened enough to where it's worrisome that they could get hired on and infiltrate your organization in what feels like a very legitimate way of doing things, especially in today's world where everybody's outsourcing everything and everything's remote. So, Sam, you got anything else to follow up?
No, I think I guess my next thing is thoughts on kind of the message that you want folks to hear for the community. Like, what do we need to be thinking about? Where should people have their focus?
Yeah. So in terms of focus, I've always believed that you're not going to prevent everything, right? And when you think about these North Korean IT workers trying to get hired, when you think about even criminal groups like Lapsus and related groups of teenagers that are just social engineering their way into these companies without really using any malware, any exploits whatsoever, there's always some way to get into an enterprise. There's always some way to get into their IT OT network even, but it doesn't mean that you're going to succeed, right? So, I've always been a fan of the detection and response model. Obviously, found a company doing endpoint detection and response, but the idea that a compromise is inevitable, but devastating impacts of that compromise, i.e., theft of all your data or degrading or destruction of your networks or physical equipment, is not, right. And it all depends on the speed of compromise. And I pioneered this set of metrics back at CrowdStrike, 1-10-60, that if you can detect an event within 1 minute, investigate in 10 minutes, and then respond within 60 minutes. And some of those metrics may even have to come down even more as the adversaries are getting better and better at breaking out, at achieving administrative level control over these networks as they're automating a lot of these attacks. But if you can do it faster than them, right? If you can be inside their OODA loop, that is how you ultimately win, because you're not going to stop everything. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about the changing nature of warfare and the lessons from Ukraine in terms of how cyber has been used in that conflict and how it may be used in future conflicts, which might be quite a bit different from what we're seeing right now in Ukraine. And we'll talk about why.
Yeah, I think it's an important conversation to have, especially here in Houston, where this is going to be obviously with a lot of the, I guess, the critical infrastructure that's just consolidated here, and just so much of that, and from port standpoint, manufacturing, oil and gas, energy. I think everybody's going to be really paying attention to that conversation, especially if somebody who's seen it all and has moved as you have into the sphere of looking at this from a geopolitical standpoint, not just, what can I do to protect my company on a day-to-day basis. Very important conversation to have. We've got an OT focused conference that we built around a lot of this as well. And so just people are going to be there to hear this, and I'm excited about seeing what you bring to it and having the book and just all of your experience that you're bringing to it. So I appreciate you coming out. Appreciate you being on here. I know you've got a lot of these that you're recording, so I appreciate the time. Means a lot, and thank you for coming out to HOU.SEC.CON.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be with you guys.
Absolutely. Sam, any final parting words?
Can't wait. I'm counting down the days. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a blast.
This is Dmitri. I hope you have a good time when you come down here, because we're gonna put on our biggest show yet for you. So I hope you come out and have a great time. So
I love it.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us with Dmitri, and we will see you on the next episode.